everybody, and welcome back to the channel. I am Kendall, and this is Kendall, the Model Scholar. If this is your first time joining me on my channel, thank you for stopping by. If you're returning, thank you for coming back. This is a channel where I talk about all things about being a model and a scholar, which means balancing your life, ladies, as with your career, with being a wife or not being. Having extra, life passions that you're trying to pursue in addition to a career, all of that together. So that's what my channel is about. And I want to thank you for coming back today and joining me. And this episode today is going to be all about my honeymoon that I just traveled on a few weeks ago. So because I traveled, I was, in a quarantine period in the state of Massachusetts. When you travel outside of the state and you come back, it was 14 days or negative COVID test, but now it was shortened to 10 days, in the last few months, which I don't know where they got that number from. But yes, when you travel outside of the state of Massachusetts and come back home, they ask you to quarantine for 10 days or produce a negative COVID test. And because of where we traveled, it wasn't that simple to get a COVID test before traveling back into the U.S. So we just decided to do the quarantine, which is the same thing that we did when we actually traveled home for our wedding. So now that the quarantine period is over and things seem to be good, we're both in good health and good spirits. I'm back at it. So I wanted to share and talk about my honeymoon and offer some tips, of course, as usual, as to how you can make the most out of your honeymoon and what we learned from just recently traveling there. So some of you may or may not know, if you don't follow me on social media, that we just traveled to Cancun, Mexico for our honeymoon. And this was actually kind of like a delayed honeymoon because of COVID-19. We were actually supposed to originally travel on our honeymoon. I think like 2 days. Well, our wedding was on a Saturday. We were supposed to leave on Monday, 2 days after our wedding. But we made the decision, which was a great decision, because I probably wouldn't have been in any place to go anyway. But we decided to push it back, and we pushed it back to January. And we did the same week as my husband's birthday, actually. So his birthday fell during our honeymoon, which was also nice. So it was definitely well worth it pushing it back. And so that would be probably like the first tip that I would share, is that I know that a lot of couples are like, oh, we're going to our honeymoon like the morning after the wedding, we're out of here, which at the time may seem like a good idea. But a lot of couples that I've heard that have done that, they either like almost miss their flight because the wedding, it's a big deal, it's a long day, you're tired, you're exhausted, and then most likely you have a morning flight, so the next day you have to jump up at 5 a.m. to try to make a whatever in the AM flight. And especially if you're traveling internationally, you got to be there even earlier. So I definitely really loved the decision for us to push it back. It gave us time to like enjoy each other as newlyweds and then go on the honeymoon a few months after being married. It was well worth the wait. And it also gives you something to look forward to. And it's like, the last part of your kind of wedding activities. So I definitely recommend, as a first tip, that you consider going on your honeymoon a few months after and not directly after the wedding. But if you still choose to, that's up to you, but that's just my little tip. Also, I wanted to highlight my sweatshirt today. It's so dope, y'all. This, it says Wifey, if you're wondering. It's from one of my favorite brands, Brand Ave, who I'm also an affiliate for. So if you shop on their website, brandavclothing.com, and use my code Mrs. Morris, you can get 10% off of your purchase. So go ahead and check them out. They're a Black-owned company, a Black married couple from California, and I love all of their stuff and highly recommend all of their stuff. So just go check them out. Use my code. You can get 10% off. So I just wanted to highlight that before I move forward. But I know some people are probably like, wait a minute, you travel right now during COVID? And it's like, yeah, I think I never will place a judgment on anyone. So like if a lot of us who have gotten married during this pandemic or will be getting married during the pandemic, it is a lot. It is stressful. It adds another layer of unanticipated stress that you probably weren't even having to consider. And so I think like we really felt like we deserved this trip and we used the utmost precaution and did everything that we were supposed to do in order to remain safe. And we did our part when we arrived back in the United States and have actually quarantined for the amount of time they asked us to quarantine and not interacted with other people or any of that. So I think, it's up to each couple to make their own decisions about what they are willing to do and not do. And I mean, there are a lot of travel restrictions right now. So I think Cancun was perfect for us at the time that we decided to go because, the restrictions are not as strenuous to go, to travel to Mexico. And it was, where we stayed is somewhere they call the hotel zone, which is literally just a long strip of other resorts and hotels. So the place that we stayed, and we felt like it was safe when we got to the resort. All of the staff wore masks all the time, more so than the other guests, and practice safety and social distancing. There were signs everywhere. They didn't allow more than one couple on the elevator at one time going up and down. You had to wear a mask in the buffet food areas, or any food areas in general. They had signs all over the resort asking you to wear a mask. The staff carry hand sanitizer all the time offered to you. So I think there are ways that you can, still have that honeymoon and be safe during this time. But like I said, it's up to, my second tip is that do what's best for you and your spouse. Like, if you really don't feel comfortable traveling right now, don't let other people like me that you see on social media going all around traveling pressure you into thinking you have to travel. There's nothing wrong with, having a honeymoon at your 1 year anniversary if you didn't get the opportunity to do it right when you got married, because things are kind of crazy right now. So I would say tip number 2 is make sure that you actually are committed to traveling, because there is that added extra things that you're going to have to do because of the times that we're in right now. For example, I don't know if you follow the news, but they just announced that I believe it already started. It started on January 26th, I believe. If you travel outside of the country and you try to get back into the United States, now you do have to produce a negative COVID test within 72 hours of your travel date. So that means even if you're only going somewhere for 4 days, you have to be able to produce a negative COVID test to come back into the United States. So that's something to consider. Like, if that seems anxiety provoking or that's too much for you, you might want to consider just doing a United States local honeymoon for now until that is a little bit more lax and more people become vaccinated and things like that, and they're able to lift those restrictions. But I did see an article about that said, starting effective January 26th, if you do travel outside the country, before you come back, you have to present a negative COVID test. Another thing that you have to do is fill out a health form. And we had to fill out one to go into Mexico, to come out of Mexico, and for Massachusetts. So that's really important that, that's my third tip. If you're going to travel, and especially right now, but anytime you're traveling, especially internationally, please do your research first. Be aware of what are the requirements for identification. Like, do I need a passport and a visa, or just a passport? Because some countries you travel to, even if it's not for an extended period of time, there are going to be certain documents that they require. So just please make sure that you do your research before you travel anywhere, especially out of the country, and understand like what are the requirements. And especially with COVID, like I said, Cancun, Mexico, not just Cancun, but all of Mexico, they didn't require a COVID test to enter into their country at the time that we traveled, but that might have changed. And so I definitely looked on the TSA website very often, very frequently leading up to our travel date to make sure that none of that stuff changes, because it can change on a day-to-day basis. You don't know. It depends on, what the COVID cases are looking like in that particular country. So I would definitely say do your research and make sure that you are informed about what the expectations are for whatever country you're traveling to, so that you can be safe and don't get stuck nowhere, y'all, because nobody wants to be stuck and not be able to get back. So definitely keep up with the news, check. And if you're unsure, you can always look on, like I said, the TSA website, or you can just contact the airline directly, and they should have the answers because they're the ones who are constantly flying in and out of these countries. So they should be able to tell you if you have all the right documentation or if everything is up to date. And you can also sometimes go look on the like the embassy websites for the countries that you're trying to travel to. The only thing that might be a barrier is language, but oftentimes you can translate it into English if you don't know the language of the country you're traveling to and figure that information out. The next tip that I will offer is definitely if you're going to travel, I would recommend doing a resort, especially during these times. It's a lot safer because you know that a lot of these resorts are, if you go on their website and look, like we went to Secrets Divine, which is an adult only 18 and up resort in Cancun. It was great. I highly recommend it. But if you go on the websites of these resorts, they'll have like the seal on their website that says like they have whatever certification for COVID that says that they're doing extra cleaning measures. And then also none of these resorts are operating at 100% capacity right now. They're not allowed to. I know the one that we went to, they were only operating at 40% capacity. So that is something else to consider, that it's not going to be, you shouldn't go there and it be as crowded as it was pre-COVID. And if it is, then they're violating some rules. So I would definitely say that's another thing that might reassure you. But yeah, another tip is to definitely go the resort route instead of just trying to go on your own to like maybe renting a house or, doing an Airbnb thing. Like that might not be the best option right now. If you want to travel in the next 5-6 months, you might want to consider definitely want to consider a resort, because number one, if the cleaning practices and the lower capacity and just the reassurance that they have some type of, guidelines or system in place to make sure that everybody is safe and social distancing. The next tip I would say is like, don't go with the crowd. Like I said, when me and my husband went on our honeymoon, a good amount of the guests were not wearing masks, except like in the places that is required. Cause like they're not going to stop you if you're walking around and don't have a mask on. But if you're in the food area, for example, and stuff like that, they required you to wear a mask. But just walking around, people like were being lax. And my thing is, don't go with the crowd. We never took our mask off. We even wore our mask to walk down to the beach and see the ocean. Like we never went with the crowd. Like, and there were a good amount of couples who were always wearing their masks like us, but there was also a fair amount who weren't. So like some people are confused and think that we're not still going through a pandemic. So they were being lax, but I would really highly recommend that you don't go with the crowd on this one. Wear your mask at all times. You will be fine. If you want to take a picture, you can take the mask off real quick and take your picture, put it back on. But do not go with the crowd. You want to be safe. You do not want to get sick. Nobody wants to get this. I mean, we've seen how much death and sadness and sickness has come from this. So if you are going to travel, the least you can do out of respect for yourself and respect for others and respect for the home state that you're going to travel back to, you don't want to bring that mess back. So just wear your mask at all times. What we did was I bought me and my husband both a 10-pack of disposable masks, and that was enough to get us through a week. And then we also had N95 masks. We put those boys on for the plane because they're, better in terms of protecting from things getting in or out. So, that worked pretty well for us. We just got a mask a day. Sometimes we had to do 2 a day, but like 10 disposable masks for a week was enough for us. That was good. That worked out well. Also, they do allow you to bring the small Lysol sprays, and you can bring Clorox wipes, and I brought both of those. And if you want to disinfect everything from your seat on the airplane to wherever you're traveling to when you get to your room, if you want to do an extra little whatever because you're nervous about that, you can travel with those items. So I would highly recommend that you bring those along with you. I got my stuff from Target in the travel section. So highly recommend you do that. My next tip would be, if you can, if it's in your budget, I would highly recommend that you do like the upgrade or the preferred level. So we I had never experienced that on a trip before, but it was definitely well worth it. So because our room was preferred, first of all, it was a bigger room, and we had like a wraparound balcony and an ocean view, which was really, really nice and peaceful to wake up to every day, number one. And then with the preferred access, you get access to, additional things. So the first thing was that we had access to a special pool that was on the 12th floor that only preferred guests could visit. And so that was nice because it was less crowded, because the pools downstairs had everybody else. So that was a good way for us to socially distance and be safe, is because we were in an area where it wasn't, there was never a lot of people there. Also, there was a preferred lounge that was on another floor that we had access to that hardly ever had anybody in it, where you get like upgraded, fancier snacks and, access to another set of like drinks, like teas, coffees, a person who's at a counter who will attend to you and fix you whatever you want to drink, and TVs and all of that. So that was really nice. We visited there every day, and it was nice to be able to do that. And then also there was access to a restaurant that was only for preferred guests. So usually all the resorts have different perks for being preferred, but I highly recommend it, especially if you want to just be even more distance from people, because a lot of people are not going to be preferred. If you do that, then you'll have, more access. And obviously it costs more money, but if you are able to budget for that, I will highly suggest selecting a package that includes that, because it'll allow you even more seclusion from people if that's what you want. I also suggest, my other tip is that you book a special package, like if they have a honeymoon package, because most of the time, especially if you go to like an adult only or a resort that's focused on honeymoons, like that's their specialty, like Sandals or something like that, they usually have like honeymoon packages. And so we did that, and it was really, really, it made it really, really nice. So, one morning we had breakfast in bed. They brought breakfast to our room. That was nice. We also did like a couples massage, which was really, really nice in their spa. And then we did like a dinner for two that was like upgraded. It wasn't just the normal resort dinner. It was like, a 4-course meal. It was really nice. So I would suggest like picking little packages like that. Sometimes they'll come and they're supposed to have your room decorated when you arrive, but maybe because of COVID, they're not really doing that as much. But most of the time they'll like decorate it with some roses or leave you a nice message, or they gave us a nice little welcome letter, so just stuff like that to add additional nice touches to your honeymoon and make it more romantic. I would definitely highly recommend that. And then I guess like my final tip is to do the honeymoon. Like I know some people are like, oh, it's expensive, we don't have the budget for that. But again, don't let the outside world pressure you and think that like you have to go on the honeymoon like again the day after your wedding or even a couple months after. If you really want to go, but maybe that's not in your budget, you can do a couple options. Number one, you can save over time, and then like I said, you can make it be like a first year anniversary trip is your honeymoon, because you weren't able to go like right after you got married, and they have specials for that too. Like if it's your 1-year anniversary, there's special things you can do to make it again more romantic and really nice. And then another thing you can do is if especially during COVID time, if you're not able to invite guests to your wedding, but you still are asking them to give you gifts. I know some couples who actually, instead of asking for physical gifts or, like having a traditional registry or just asking for money in general, they will start like a honeymoon fund, and people can contribute to that. And I mean, people will or they won't, but, if you're a good couple and they know that, that's something that's important to you, because it is really wonderful to be able to travel, just you and your spouse, and have that time alone. It's really a beautiful thing. So that's another option for you if it's not really in your budget or you can't really afford it altogether. You can, start a honeymoon fund and ask people to put money into that, as opposed to you just like getting money in general for you as a couple to start your marriage off. So that is another option. But whatever you choose, I hope that you have the best time and that you find a really nice location. I highly recommend Secrets Divine Cancun if you are looking for a destination, and they have other resorts in other countries as well. If you just Google Secrets Divine, they have several locations on all the different islands that you can choose. But the one in Cancun is really, really nice. The staff is really nice. Again, it was really clean. They really took that extra step to make sure that we felt safe and comfortable. So if that's something that you're worried about, you don't have to be worried about it going there. And it did get crowded over when we got towards Thursday and towards the weekend. So if you're looking for a more quiet experience, I would say do like we did and arrive there like on a Sunday or a Monday, and do that instead of starting on the weekend, because it does get a little jumping on the weekend. But yeah, those are my tips for honeymoon planning, and I wish you all the best. And again, if you have any questions about anything or want to hear me talk about something else, make sure you put it in the comments. And once again, thank you so much for joining my channel. See you all next time. Bye bye.